The Heart Demystified. Smarter Heart University and Dr. Scott on AM 970, The Apple.
Good morning and welcome back to your Smarter Heart University. So the answer to the pop quiz, how many minutes of aerobic exercise on most days of the week do you need to lose weight? 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or 90 minutes? And I don't think you're wrong, Dr. Bob, for saying 90 minutes, but the minimum is 60 minutes. And this is part of this 2006 American Heart Association dietary guidelines. And so we're going to, that's our last basic review of all the diets that we talked about. The aim was to integrate many of the dietary and lifestyle interventions that we just talked about into one nice package, if you can. In addition to the fruits and veggies and healthy fats and fiber, they make an important part of this approach to limit your salt, by what we call the DASH diet. They take that diet that we didn't even talk about to specifically lower your blood pressure, and sugar to specifically lower your diabetes rate, as well as implicate the trans fats, to lower the trans fats as well. They combine fish and the wine and nuts and oil of the Mediterranean lifestyle very well. But also add actually counting your calories along with supplementing plant sterols that we did talk about last week in the what you can do section for I don't care about your total cholesterol. That's the natural cholesterol blockers in your intestine that you can get from a good place that has nutraceuticals. So they put all of these together and put it in a stew, if you will, and a very nice stew. Again, you need to download that and follow it. But the diet itself hasn't been studied in terms of these endpoints that we talked about. But if you think about it, 8 out of the 13 recommendations that we've now discussed have proven mortality benefit already. So how do we put all of this together? Well, it's hard to get dietary counseling during your doctor's visit above and beyond what I always say is eat smart, eat less, and move a lot more, okay? Actually, I didn't initially say that, but I'm now saying it regularly on my patients. So that's the limit, that's the bare minimum that any doctor can say. Eat smarter, eat a lot less, or restrict your calories, and move more.
That's basic physics.
Okay. It's great if your doctor knows a little bit about each of the approaches that we've given you, but the important take-home point is none of them that you can do, and this is important, will worsen your outcome. You can do all of them, and they're all good. So we here, we at Change of Heart Cardiology, and the two of us here today, have no specific opinion on recommendation of which one, but as stated in the beginning, a diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables and healthy fatty acids like the omega-3s from fish and from plants, and limited saturated fat intake results in the best outcome, in your best outcome. In terms of heart disease, in terms of death, and in terms of cancer. And that's what Dr. Ornish was trying to say years ago. Now, here's a concept you may not be familiar with. A recent study last month out of Philadelphia, my hometown, stated that the weight control message should not be concerned whether your diet is high in this or low in that, but more emphasis should be placed on behavioral strategies to improve your staying on the course. Actually, we had one caller in, and I'm going to finish up after you make some comments, Dr. Bob. The study showed that the support in the form of 6 major things. Number one, group sessions that taper from weekly to monthly and so on, about supporting your diet and what you're doing, keeping a food diary of what you're eating, limiting places and activities that are associated with poor eating access or poor eating choices, increasing your physical activity, of course, recovering from the poor eating episodes, like, oh my God, what did I do? But having support for that, and reversing small gains in your weight. Now, believe it or not, studies have shown in the psychiatry world that this is a very effective approach at keeping the brass ring in sight and reaching your goals. So, folks, how do we target you and us too from to be more effective? We know that physical activity is such an important part of preventing weight gain and enhancing weight loss. So one of my top 10 Dr. Scott quotes is always, have you heard the commercial, no diet will help you lose weight until you do one thing, exercise. Well, guess what? No exercise will help you lose weight until you do one thing, eat right. They're both hand in hand. People come in and say, I eat right. Well, do you exercise? No. I exercise every single day. Well, do you eat right? I'm supposed to. I mean, the bottom line is, folks, we can't get anywhere until we do both. Now, here's the staggering fact. Doesn't make that not surprising. Only 45% of we adults, myself included at this point in time, meet the minimal recommended levels of physical activity to improve our life outcomes. And you heard it here. 30 minutes most days of the week for your heart, 60 minutes most days of the week for your weight. Part of being an American is our stress. Stress we put on ourselves, stress that is put on us now more than ever. And that's why we did early on the Stress and the Heart lecture. Great one again. I can't say enough about going back and listening to that one because as you notice, and you will notice, when we're done 35 shows, all of them tie together so well. One after the other. They all have an overlap because this is the stuff that comes in every day to our office. Our diet is affected and our physical activity is affected by our stress. So it's so important that you understand the factors that influence your dietary choices and your choice to be physically active or inactive, and you have to make a difference. So that is why it's simply not enough for us to tell you how to eat or what to eat. And possibly the best thing I've heard about diet and weight loss in the past several years is the development of a postgraduate nutritional program focused on behavioral eating. What was once called an eating disorder, or people attending Overeaters Anonymous classes and the like, are now globally being taught in the classroom to dietitians and nutritionists to affect the change. This is great.
It is. You know, a lot of components came to those from those recommendations. You look at. First is that's why if you I don't know if the Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig, it's support, it's calorie counting. That's why those work. There's a lot of stuff in there about the addiction world and support groups and maintaining your from the you know, the NA, the Narcotics Anonymous, the Gamblers Anonymous, that whole 12-step support stuff. So to emphasize what you're doing, but it gets back to the eat less, do more. I'm an old engineer. It's a first law of thermodynamics. You got to use more energy than you're taking in. You can't if you take in more energy, more calories, more mass, and you don't use it, you're gonna put on weight.
You actually bring up a good point. I didn't want to get into the physics aspect of it, but you bring up a great point, Bob. The energy of food. You know, the foods that you eat have a lower energy expenditure and a higher energy expenditure. And I didn't get into that. That's what's really great from a nutritional standpoint and a dietitian standpoint. That's what they go to study for, is looking at the energy aspects of food. So that you burn more calories, you know, with certain, you know, with the higher fat and especially the vegetable fat, vegetable proteins, the higher protein diets, you know, you're going to use more energy, but burn more energy and burn more fat, that approach. And of course, again, it's the same thing. As you said, if we don't physically expend energy, we talked about that in terms of the longevity genes. If we cut our calories by 12.5%, and increase our energy expenditure by 12.5%, we turn on these silent information regulators and we improve our longevity.
And we, you know, we get to this idea that you have to finish what's on your plate. You know, you got to empty your plate. But you know, if just a rule of thumb,
I'm one of the worst at that.
Yeah, well, me too. If you were to take your plate of food and eat half of it every day, you leave half of your plate of food, that's half the calories. Right. You've now cut your half in. Of course, from a vascular health standpoint, you also have to improve the quality of food you eat. Right. But if we just cut the quantity and small meals, small meals. You take a picture of these great diets on that all these commercial diets propose, but when you actually see it, the portions are pretty small.
We get, in addition to getting calls, we get texts. Everyone in the house must follow rules, working together, bringing only the foods in the house that are beneficial, and the family should exercise together. So basically, the family that eats right together and exercise together lives longer together.
Well, that's what my mom is. My wife has done that. You know, we don't have junk food in the house, so you don't have it to eat. If you don't have it to eat, you don't miss it. And the idea of exercising together is fantastic.
Yeah, and then we also did get a text about a question. So people that have bypass surgery, do they usually gain the weight back? And do we usually see a difference in their cholesterol and health post-gastric bypass? That's a great question. Yes and no. Okay, well, it's
exactly.
true. The ones that stick with it and lose the weight, we see a lot of reversal of blood pressure and cholesterol and diabetes, and at least a 50% or more reduction in their requirements for medications. The bottom line is almost entirely like the diets that I just reviewed, they gain the weight back in a year. And that's not all of them. The ones that stick with it. If you stick with the diet, you're going to keep your weight off.
The fear of what happened to you is waned, and now you're slowly getting back into the bad habits, which is the whole point behind the support groups of having the whole household involved in the program.
That was a great recommendation.
We talked on the break about that young gentleman I had as a fellowship who came to me and he was 50 pounds overweight, didn't do much, had bad heart disease because of his hypertension. He saw the light, lost 50 pounds, exercised an hour a day, and within a year, his heart was back to normal.
Structurally, we're going to do a whole thing on cardiomyopathy or weak heart muscles, a whole special on that. Structurally, you exercise, you can get that heart muscle stronger. So pop quiz. Dr. Bob's hate me at this point. If you smoke and adopt the Mediterranean lifestyle approach, your risk of death is cut by 25%, 35%, or 45%.
Wow, I'll go with the lowest on that. 25% smoking is horrible.
Okay, we'll give Dr. Bob the answer when we come back on Smarter Heart University on AM 970, The Apple.